Bernard the Bear is one of the many talkless late 2000s shows with crappy CG animation. Through its many seasons and movies, there has been one larger plot developing in the background, and I'm going to uncover it. But first, I'm running for President of the United States, and just today, I have learned of my opponent, Dung. He's, a pile of, well, enough said. I'm not sure of his platform. I'm not sure he has one. Also, I'm not sure if he's capable of speaking. I'm not sure if he has a following. So as of right now, my campaign's looking splendid. You know what doesn't look splendid? Bernard the Bear. I mean, he's not awful for low-budget, late 2000s CG animation, but this thing looks like it was made in Gmod. Bernard is a polar bear. In the main series, he lives the typical everyday human life, taking up every hobby and sport imaginable. And he's an absolute jerk to everyone and in every situation. Bernard has multiple seasons and multiple movies, and the timeline is the wackiest I've encountered yet. His first appearance was in some short segments from 2002 titled Bakum, which is polar bear in Korean. In 2006, he got his own official series titled Bernard, along with a movie called My Friend Bernard. The show lasted for 3 seasons, and that was it, until his license was bought by a Chinese company, and they have turned him into an abomination. They continued the Bernard series, retitled Bakum, made 2 movies, and a 3rd releasing soon. Assuming every installment in the series is canon, we should start with Bakum Bear Agent 008. The movie came out in 2017, long after the initial 3 seasons, and after the franchise was bought by the Chinese. However, I think I should start where the franchise started, just so we can all observe how viciously this franchise devolved into chaos. The pilot series, called Bakum, featured a handful of really short segments. It introduced us to Bernard and all of his wacky friends, or rather enemies. And speaking of them, let's establish our characters. Bernard. He's a hairless polar bear. He was a spy many years ago, and I will talk about that later. But now he's just your average cranky dude. He has the shortest temper known to man, and he has extreme anger issues. He's also a criminal. He deserves a lot of prison time, but I'll touch on that later. Zack the Lizard, also a criminal. He successfully scams Bernard all the time. He also suspiciously looks a lot like a green version of Oscar from Oscar's Oasis. I'm sure there's not a connection there, right? Lloyd the Penguin, he's just kinda there. I mean, he doesn't really have a personality. He resembles Wheezy from Toy Story so much that I think there should probably be some infringement claim or something. And this anteater thing. He's in like one segment and never seen again. I have quite the feeling Bernard had something to do with his disappearance. The shorts were really basic concepts. Hiking, taking pictures, hang gliding, aliens coming down, you know, the basics. And with all of these plots, Bernard always managed to screw something up. For the most part, all of these ideas were reused in Bernard, the official show from 2006. Bernard. Of this entire franchise, this show is like the only good thing to really come out of it. This is the Bernard show you've probably seen. Of course, if you're not from an Asian country. This is truly where the world was introduced to Bernard. This show is essentially 10 times the shorts. Each episode is 3 minutes, 50 or so episodes per season, and 3 seasons. That's 7.5 hours, all of which I watched over 2 days for this video. One person can only consume so much Bernard, and I overdosed. The shorts became very, very repetitive, but all of these talkless shows do. Bernard plays every sport imaginable, and screws it up. Golf, basketball, bowling, baseball, football, boxing, tennis, essentially everything in Wii Sports, but also pool, kendo, if that's a sport, taekwondo, fishing, beach volleyball, judo, fencing, pole vault, archery. You get the point. If he's not playing a sport, he's doing one of his millions of hobbies. Going to the gym, ice climbing, watching TV, hitchhiking, skydiving, going to theme parks, camping, hiking, scuba diving, street racing, etc., etc. He also works countless jobs. Security guard, fumigator, you don't need the list. And the 4th category of plots, objects. He interacts with tons of different objects, and there's a whole 3 minutes dedicated to it. The episodes are fine. They're not hilarious, just funny. It's a good show if you watch a handful of episodes and call it good, but when you binge more than like 10 episodes, which you absolutely should not do under no circumstances ever, the show gets a little bit too much of the same thing. Bernard, Zack, and Lloyd return in this series. The anteater is nowhere to be found. There are a few new characters. Eva. She's a female penguin, and Bernard has the hots for her. Feelings are not mutual. I just don't know what Bernard thinks is gonna happen. Have you ever tried plugging a USB into your phone? Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. And then there's also Goliath. He's a little chihuahua, and he doesn't have that many appearances, but when he does appear, he annihilates Bernard. As far as the segments go, it's hard to really see a building story, but we do learn about Bernard's descent into his criminal life. He commits countless felonies and is never once prosecuted or even caught. I will now tell you all of Bernard's heinous crimes, and keep in mind, he has multiple accounts of all of these, and I almost certainly forgot some of them. Hitchhiking, loitering, assault, whatever kind of assault this is, aggravated assault, destruction of public property, animal abuse, causing an avalanche. I don't know the law, but that's gotta be illegal. Theft, monumental destruction, street racing, public indecency. I mean, he's literally naked 100% of the time. Aggression, psychological and emotional abuse, ordering women's underwear. Not a crime, but perverted. Possibly murder. We don't know where that anteater went. And there's a ton more. But some of them I can't say because YouTube might not be too keen on me saying it. Suffice to say, Bernard needs to be prosecuted and punished. However, I might know why he isn't. He's a secret agent for the United States government. Yeah, I know how crazy that sounds. But you gotta hang on for a second because I can't explain that yet. First, I have to go over his first movie. That's right. This clandestine bear got his own movie. And let me tell you, this is genuinely one of the worst things I have ever watched. My comments sometimes tell me that I'm hypercritical of certain shows. So certain things that I think are bad aren't actually that bad. But this movie is horrendous. The only way to properly describe this movie is to use politically incorrect words. The movie starts on Sam. He's a lead paint baby. He has several issues. He has a severe connection to his teddy bear. Because of his mental issues, he accidentally lets out his pet bird, which flies into a Salvation Army bucket, guarded by what is supposed to be Santa Claus. I'm pretty sure this is Nigel Thornberry. Like, how does your Santa model end up looking like this? Grotesque is just about the perfect word to describe it. Also by him is Goliath, that dumb little dog. Oh, also, since none of them talk, they have a narrator that describes every single detail.
Here's Sam. Sam's kind of shy. That's why he's hiding.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Narrator. Thank you for describing this for us, because us as the dumb audience couldn't figure that out. And this goes on for another hour and 10 minutes. Goliath takes the teddy bear, Sam ends up getting Santa's magic necklace, the necklace summons Yuri, a new character, he's a dog that's a pilot, and he pilots a giant mug. So Yuri kidnaps Sam. Narrator, would you like to help explain?
And it looks like he has plans for Sam.
And what exactly are those plans? What is he planning with a small underage boy? They magically teleport to Antarctica, where all of our characters live. We meet Lloyd, and then Yuri ditches Sam, leaving him to die in the freezing cold. 11 minutes and 22 seconds into the movie, we finally meet Bernard. He farts and kills some fish, and then we get a bit of a lull, where Bernard, Lloyd, and Sam are just kind of doing whatever in this weird liminal 3D generated hellscape. Eva comes into play, and once again Bernard lusts for her, and he and Lloyd fight over Eva's love. Naturally, Eva prefers Lloyd, because, you know, he's her species and all. Finally, at the 30-minute mark, after just bullcrap lollygagging around in the tundra for like 20 minutes, literally they just go back and forth places. Nothing happens. They fall off a cliff and get teleported by Yuri to the desert. Here we meet with Zach. And wouldn't you believe it, they spend the next half hour here. Nothing happens. There's a sea monster that captures Eva, but actually is like good, but isn't good. And Bernard and the others walk around and fish. They are constantly fishing, and they just go from like one place to another. There's so few gags. It's not funny. I don't understand why this was made. No wonder they didn't have a 70-minute story for a bear that's used to 3-minute shorts. Once they use the magic necklace again, they dump Bernard, Lloyd, and Eva back off at the tundra, and then Yuri drops Sam back off at home. He goes back to the Santa guy, except he's no longer Santa, and rather just some dude with a disease that's late stage. And then he has a run-in with Goliath again. They chase each other to the playground. After this, Sam is picked up by a white van and was never seen again. There's not anything to the story. There was no goal. There was no typical moral how most kids' movies would have. The only thing that this was a waste of my time because there wasn't a drop of lore. So after the 3 seasons and the movie, there was a hiatus, and the Bernard franchise was bought by some Chinese company. They changed Bernard back to Backham, and made him even worse than what he was. They gave him seasons 4 and 5. These seasons are worse, not much happens, and the characters just do the same things they were doing before. Also, I skimmed through these last 2 seasons, so it's possible I missed something. I fully intended to watch them all, but after the first episode of season 4 where Zack just phases through a sign, I knew it was going to be rough. I know they never had the best animation, but come on, at least make your characters corporeal. The Chinese Bernard also got 2 movies, and a third releasing very soon. I was hesitant to watch the movie after the first one's monstrosity, but I gave it a shot anyway. Backum Bear Agent 008. Canonically, I believe this takes place before the pilot episodes. In Antarctica, where Bernard and his mother live, humans have placed dynamite all around their home, and plan on blowing it up, which they do. Bernard's mother goes bye-bye, and Bernard gets picked up by a girl. Fast forward, Bernard is older and he lives in his zoo. But behind the wall in the zoo, he has a full-on human bedroom, which then leads to like a super spy agency or something, and he works as a janitor. Now we're at the point where the exposition was important, but since it was in full Chinese with no English dub, I lost a lot of said exposition. Essentially, polar bears start bombing human homes as revenge or something. Bernard gets a super smart chip that turns him into a spy, so after like a huge super adventure, it's revealed the polar bear behind the attack is actually Bernard's mother, and she didn't die. Not sure how she survived this one. It ends with Bernard living back in Antarctica with his family. This movie was, putting it lightly, not very good either. Not as bad as the other one, but still not the best quality content. After this, there was a sequel, Agent Backum King's Bear. Look, I didn't watch this one. I read the synopsis, and I promise it's not worth covering. The third movie coming out is Backum Bear Mission to Mars. Come on, that's just absurd. First Larva in Mars, now Bernard. I guess when these shows truly hit rock bottom, they launch them into space. So I need to touch on something I mentioned earlier. Why hasn't Bernard been prosecuted, let alone charged with these crimes? Maybe after everything he did for the United States government, helping stop all the polar bear attacks and stuff, maybe they just kinda gave him a free pass to do what he wants now. Is it the best theory? No. Is it a theory? Yes. So I have to assume after these spy movies, they just kind of plopped him into the United States, and then the main series takes place after he's just living in some random city. Don't really know where the first movie falls in the timeline because Bernard is still living in Antarctica, but we never really see him go from there to permanently living in the United States. There's definitely a couple plot holes, but the one thing I'd still like to know, what happened to that anteater? Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what other weird and obscure shows you'd like me to cover. Remember, I am running for president, and the way you vote for me is hitting that subscribe button, so make sure you do that. What's awesome is you don't even have to wait until November, and you don't even have to be American. Subscribe if you want to see more obscure stuff like this.